Okay, Nick, thank you so much for taking your time to come onto the podcast today.
No worries, mate. Thanks for having me.
A pleasure indeed. We've been on the same podcast voice before with Next Step Espresso with the whole COVID-19
We have.
events last year with sports nutrition. So if anyone's interested, go and check that out. But just give us, who you are and what it is you currently do.
Yeah, my name's Nick. I work with basically everyday athletes is the best way to describe it. So people who have normal jobs and do normal everyday stuff, but also have an athletic goal. Think, people who run and want to do marathons, or people who, want to make the first team in football or rugby or something like that. They're the type of people I primarily work with, but I'm also a performance nutritionist, an S&C coach. I've been a rugby coach for like 12 years or something. I started being a rugby coach like the day I could. I turned 18, was allowed to be a coach, became a coach. I think you can become a coach of juniors earlier than that, but I've never coached anything other than the first team. So yeah, it's been a weird coaching journey to go from like just being a rugby coach. And at the time I was an engineer in the Air Force. And it kind of just step by step, people were asking me more questions and I would find out the answers. And then I was like, I should probably get qualified in this. And once I became a personal trainer, people were asking me S&C questions, so I became an S&C coach. People were asking me nutrition questions, so I became a nutritionist. And it just keeps going like that, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how these things take a natural progression based on like the questions people ask you, and you're like, oh, okay, I've got a hole in my game there. Let's go and fill it.
Yeah. Oh, it was like I probably knew a lot of it before I became qualified, but I didn't want to tell anyone anything in case I was wrong. Like I had a good understanding based on what I thought I knew, but I wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing anything. Like last thing I wanted to do was, even when I wasn't qualified, I wasn't getting paid for it, was tell someone wrong information and I know they get sick or, worst case, obviously they get sick, but, even not as bad of a case, they just don't get the results that they're after. Like imagine if I was like, yeah, all you got to do is stop eating carbs and then that's how you lose weight. And this one doesn't lose weight. Like you look like an idiot.
Yeah, and that was a similar thing of like why I got certified as a nutritionist. It was those constant asks of nutrition as someone who was working in fitness, and you're like, okay, well, I've heard a lot of these different things, and my course said this, but actually, what's the truth? And it makes you go out and search for an actual sort of certification or something to fill your boots. So, what made you start instantly into rugby? I'm guessing that was the background you had in playing it that led you to then coach it.
Yeah, so I started playing rugby when I was 4, and I've played ever since. So the longest I've had off rugby is COVID, since I was 4 years old. And when I was in the Air Force, and I was posted to a base in the outback in Australia. And so we had the town we lived in had 4 teams, and we just played each other for a season. We played each other like 3 or 4 times in a season. And the team I played for was only Air Force, and because I was low rank at the time, I just joined up, I had extra time where I could be doing things like coaching a rugby team where the other people on the team didn't. So I kind of got put in the position, and again, I was put in the position and then I became qualified. And I just sort of like, I had to actually travel. It's like a 5-hour flight because we were in the middle of the outback. They don't run courses there. So I had to fly back to Sydney, do a course, then fly back so that I could start coaching people and feel like I knew what I was doing. And I just loved it. And ever since then, like I took on every opportunity I could. I did some coaching with the Air Force rugby, so the representative for the whole Air Force team for men's and women's. It was just like a natural progression. Like not everyone's been playing since they were 4. So obviously during that time, you pick up some skills. A lot of it's basic skills. Like it's a reason why, I'm 32. I'm still playing top level rugby in Germany because I've been playing for 28 years. Most of the people playing here aren't even 28 years old. So yeah, it was just kind of like a natural progression. Somebody sees you do something and they ask you how to do it. And all of a sudden, everyone's coming to you for that information and you just step into that role.
Yeah, natural progression, as you said, isn't it? And funny how you said that Actually, like a lot of the time you're playing top level rugby and you're coaching people, and a lot of it's the basics that get missed out. And do you think that that's a common theme as well in people's sports progression, is that they capture the basics, yes, but then probably overlook the essentialness, if that's a word, of them, and like look for something else rather than just drilling the basics over and over and getting really, really good at them?
Yeah, I mean, it's the reason why I like coaching women more than men in rugby is because in general, when you get to the adult age group, most men already think they know what they're doing, and they don't really put that much emphasis on things like the basics. Where women, a lot of them are coming from maybe another sport, on especially like a low level of rugby, they're coming from another sport or maybe from never playing sport before, and they're all ears. Every time you tell them like a little bit of advice, they soak it up like a sponge. So, yeah, I mean, the basics are definitely overlooked, especially when you get into situations like, as I said, we were in the outback and had 4 teams to play against, so numbers of players were really low. And trying to get people to come and play and learn how to play and cover all the basics and try and get onto the field, like it's very easy to skip over. Right, you can catch and pass, cool, now let's put you on the wing because all you need to do is catch and run now. And then as you get better at passing, we might put you into the center, and it's very easy to, or even more normal in rugby. Oh, you're pretty big, let's put you in prop. No experience ever in a scrum, but let's put you here and you can headbutt this other guy. This is back in the day when scrums weren't as safe as they are now, and you're literally setting up a meter away from each other and headbutting each other as hard as you could, kind of thing. So yeah, it was always something I noticed was getting missed, was the basics, and it still happens now. Like, I mean, especially in Germany, again, there's not that many people here that play rugby. Most people play football, handball, basketball. It's probably like the 10th most popular sport here. And so when you get new players in, it's very easy to just like overlook some of the basics and go, cool, you can pass, you can catch, you can go into contact safely. Let's put you on the pitch. You'll learn it as you go. And unfortunately, what that means is even the people who are like the better players still have massive gaps in their game. Even, they might be a great ball runner, for example, can't throw a pass to save their life. So when you're facing off against them, and it's not just my team, it's heaps of, like, it's pretty much every team in Germany, but facing off against them takes like 2 runs, and then you're like, cool, this guy can't pass, and you just don't worry about the pass for the rest of the game. But again, I can see that, but somebody who hasn't played for 28 years might not identify the fact that he's never passing, probably because he can't. They're just looking at what's in front of them and playing that. They're not really reading the game. That's another thing, like beyond just the basic skills, it's things like reading the game. You need experience in, you've done fit cross for a long time. You get experience in different workouts and going, right, I'm going to blow my ass up on this, but on this, I'm going to be able to catch my breath a little bit. And it's only through experience of doing it that you learn those things.
Yeah. Good use of the the right terminology to avoid any lawful action from any sort of embodiment of fitness that may or may not be represented in this podcast. And if people are unsure what I'm on about, then feel free to DM me and I'll fill you in on the story. And I played rugby for many years as well. And as you said, like the experience is often like a missed part of people's ability. As you said, experience of knowing how things feel and knowing yourself as an athlete and what you're good at and what areas you're going to thrive in. And I think then, just like you said about the sports and particularly rugby, the basics being so key, I think there's probably then that parallel between that people's strength and conditioning and their nutrition, particularly if they're trying to be athletic, is massively overthinking it beyond the basics because they're trying to either perform really well or they've seen a lot of things online that they think they need to be doing, but they're missing out those big rock basics first.
Yeah, I mean, that can be said not just for rugby, not just in for rugby in Germany, but even for people out there, whether they're qualified or not, but calling themselves strength and conditioning coaches, and all they know how to do is show you how to use a barbell. They don't know anything that doesn't involve a barbell. Like for a lot of people, strength and conditioning is squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press, clean and snatch. And that's everything they'll ever do. They might put in a box jump or something because they think that's plyometric enough. And it's frustrating to see from the outside, but I mean, a lot of the time I have no investment in, watching some guy on Instagram be like, oh, I'm an S&C coach who wants to be coached by me. And they're just like, I don't know, doing overhead press or doing like a split jerk or something. And it's like, oh, fancy. And I'm like, okay, cool. What about anything else? What about anything that's not like basic S&C?
Yeah.
Yeah, even like going on from that, like looking at strength and conditioning for something other than a sport that uses a barbell or a sport that is specifically strength based. A lot of people forget that strength and conditioning includes the word conditioning in it as well. People, I've seen it in rugby all the time. Everyone focuses on the strength thing because they're like, oh, you'll get conditioning at training, and it's just not the case at all.
No, like actual conditioning training is very different than just running on a pitch
Yeah.
and just running around. It's like
Exactly.
you can do focus conditioning for certain energy systems, and that's a very different thing.
Exactly. Most, like, depending on the level you're talking about, but most S&C coaches I've seen in rugby who aren't getting, especially ones who aren't getting paid, you say energy system and they say, I don't know what you're talking about, like they have no idea what it is. They're just like, yeah, conditioning, running. You run in rugby, so running is conditioning. I'm like, what?
Yeah. You run in rugby, so let's just consistently do the bleep test or the Bronco
Exactly.
test. And you're like, it's not actually going to help you out.
Yeah,
it's that difference between testing and training.
Yeah, this is the one the All Blacks do, so we're going to do this at training every week. It's like,
Yeah.
what? They did it once on video, and you think that's what they do every fucking time. Like,
obviously, because it's on
can I swear
Instagram.
on this podcast?
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool.
But obviously, because it's on Instagram, so therefore it's the truth that you have to do that.
Exactly.
That's all they do.
It's hugely frustrating. I actually found that, as with most things, by focusing on the principles of S&C, just like focusing on the principles of nutrition, you can cover so much area without having to specify too much in anything. My girlfriend's a 400-meter hurdler, and the year I started coaching her, we took 3 seconds off her PB in one season, which was, she went from being 32nd in the country to 10th, I think, in the UK. And I'd never coached anyone in athletics before, but I took the principles I know about strength and conditioning and I applied them to an athlete and who had, the really specific skills already. And then boom, like all it takes is a little bit of know-how and you can apply that information anywhere. And that's one of the things I love about S&C. Like, I've got clients who run marathons. I've run a marathon before. I wouldn't say I'm an expert marathon runner. I'm pretty good at coaching people to run a better marathon. I just don't want to spend hours and hours running anymore. The year that I did my marathon, I was literally waking up every morning at like 3, running for like 3 hours, and then going to work. And that was my life for like 18 weeks leading up to it. I didn't know anything about it back then, apart from, I've got to run for, a full marathon distance. So I better get out there and run. And like, that was the literal limit of my knowledge. And it's only been since then that I kind of went, there's got to be a better way to do this, and figured it out. Yeah.
Well, I guess, and during that time when you were preparing for a marathon, you were very specific with actually running that marathon, right? And that was all your training was about. And you did a good post on this recently on your Instagram page about the SAID principle and having a specific goal at a certain time to reach rather than, going off in every which direction. And this can be true to clients who are looking to like lose fat, but also want to gain muscle, or they want to get better with the barbell, but they also want to get better at running, or they want to run a marathon, but they also want to stay jacked or get jacked, rather than stay jacked. So could you just go through the idea of, what the SAID principle actually means? And then just run us through that post of like, let's have that specific goal for a specific time and why that's so important.
Yeah, so the SAID principle is a specific adaptation to an imposed demand. And essentially what that means is you train for something and you adapt to that. Like, that's the easiest way to put it. So and in this post, there's a bunch of athletes that do all different sports and it shows their different body types. And the question in the post was about, you say you want to look like an athlete, but what do you actually mean? Like, what does that mean to look like an athlete? And to apply the SAID principle, well, if you apply the SAID principle, you can actually modify so many different parts of your either physique or performance. Like I said, if someone wants to run a marathon and also get jacked, it might seem like that's something you can't do, but in reality, if you apply the said principle, specific adaptation to an imposed demand, if your imposed demand is probably not at the same time, you don't want to be running around lifting dumbbells, but if your imposed demand is to put on some muscle, then you need to train for hypertrophy. You need to eat for hypertrophy. I don't know, do you say hypertrophy or hypertrophy?
I say hypertrophy.
Yeah, cool.
I thought that would be the UK version of it as opposed to hypertrophy. I think it's more American.
I think hypertrophy is like a huge trophy. Anyway, so you can train and eat for hypertrophy and also work on your, if you're going to run a marathon, you probably want to be doing mostly running for your conditioning, but you can also start running more regularly and increasing your fitness and specifically running fitness. And yeah, you might not be as good at running a marathon as you would be if you only focused on that. Mm-hmm. And you might not be as jacked as you would be if you only ate and trained to gain muscle, but you can definitely do both at the same time. And it's the same for losing fat and getting muscle. Like, it might not be the optimal way to do it, but you totally can. One of the things I say to my clients all the time is you don't have to, but it'd be better if you did. But that same principle can be turned on its head. And it might be better if you did, but you don't have to. You can still get a result.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. I think it's good that you mentioned you can do that, but it'd be better if you were more focused. Yep. And it's that like what I say to people all the time is when they have maybe mixed goals or different goals, it's like, I'm honest with them in that same way. Like we can do both of them, but you've got to think about the amount of time you've got to train, the amount of time you've got to eat and prepare food, and the amount of other things that are going on in your life, because people don't realize that. Like you did make that good comparison against an athlete's life versus an everyday person's life.
Yeah.
But then there's also that whole, you can maintain a goal differently to achieving a goal, right? So you can get jacked and then maintain that same level while then trying to run a marathon, but you do one followed by the other.
Yeah, the only time I would recommend someone doing both is if that was their preference, then sure, let's do it. Or if you have a limited amount of time and the time sensitive thing is for a reason, like, I don't know, you wanted to run a marathon, it was very close to also doing a bodybuilding show for whatever reason. Don't book your marathon and bodybuilding show together, but if you did. So, in most cases, ideally, obviously, we would do a little bit of getting jacked, then we'd kind of ease off on that and then do a little bit of marathon training and work our way if you did have concurrent goals, or we would work on one and then, achieve it and then maintain it, because it's really easy to maintain something compared to trying to achieve it. Like, look at muscle growth as an example. I think it's like, it's roughly about 10 sets a week per body part to maintain, where it can be up to like 30 sets a week per body part to grow. In fact, I've seen some literature which shows that it could even be as low as 3 sets a week to maintain some body parts, usually the bigger ones. But just as an average, I think it ended up being about 10. So it's a lot easier to maintain, 10 sets a week of each body part and then do marathon training on the side, or train on the side, than it is to try and do 30 sets a week per body part and do your marathon training. So if you have the time, definitely I would always recommend going one at a time. But if you have those concurrent goals, like look at Ross Edgley, he's written books and books and, gotten sponsorship deals, and, he looks like a fucking Adonis, all while doing everything at once, So everybody says you can't do it at the same time. You can. He did. He does it all the time. That's his gig. Do you think that I had a couple of questions when you were in the middle of that, but you bring up Ross Edgley. I kind of want to go here first, and I can double back in my head. Yeah.
How much of a part do you think genetics then have to play with that whole role?
So much. We can look at all the different things that could come into it for any athlete who has a concurrent goal, and anyone who's doing it really well. Genetics is going to come into it. Ross Edgley obviously has a very muscular physique, and it's probably due to his genetics more than anything. Obviously he can have those genetics and not do anything about them, and he wouldn't be sitting around looking ripped all the time. So he's obviously trained really hard to make the most of those genetics. And I would say he's probably not that genetically blessed for a lot of the other stuff that he does, but he's got heaps of determination. And he just likes to do crazy shit. Like he's like the fitness Bear Grylls almost. Like he's like, yeah, I'm going to climb a rope the length of Mount Everest. You can't do that. Well, watch me, you know. And he's got that determination to just go and do it.
Yeah.
And I met him a few times and I had lunch with him once, and he's that kind of guy. Like he's intense all the time. The way you see him on social media or wherever you see him, like that hypo, always going. Like, you want to know why he's lean? His NEAT must be through the roof. Like he's always fidgeting. He's always high, like high energy, high tempo. So, you know, and again, that's probably a lot to do with genetics as well. You know, having that high energy. You know, his parents were probably the same. And then when you're going outside of Ross Edgley, there's also, you know, there's other people in the world doing a similar thing. They've obviously going to have genetics that predispose them to, you know, be, you know, Ross Edgley doesn't look like he can swim all around the UK. He can, he proved it. But he looks like a bodybuilder. There's going to be people out there who can lift like Ross Edgley, but look like they swim around the UK or look like they run marathons all the time. So the genetics and how that actually plays out and how it looks on you and how it actually, you know, some people might not be able to handle the volume. Again, it's probably going to come down to things like genetics and training history and all that sort of thing. And then, you know, there's always PEDs, and there's definitely people out there who are doing those and getting similar results as well.
Yeah, PEDs meaning performance enhancing drugs for people who aren't down with the kids.
Yeah,
and if anyone listening, the, you know, NEAT is the non-exercise activity, and as you said, it's genetic a lot of the time with the amount that people sort of like fidget and move around. This beyond just like how many steps you've done a day.
Yeah,
bro,
I mean, we can go into nature versus nurture if you want, but I think, you know, there's an element of it that's going to be genetic, but there's also going to be an element of things like, you know, use Ross Edgley as an example again, him having really high NEAT because he's fidgeting all the time and always moving in high energy. Like I said, his parents were probably like that, and there might be a genetic component, but it also might just be he grew up around people like that all the time. Yeah. And therefore that's how he has like learned to act all the time, or not act, but behave. Like that's how he is because of maybe nature, maybe nurture, maybe a combination of both.
Yeah, and it's just good to bring up that point because, you know, it's that whole nature loads the gun and then nurture pulls the trigger in terms of the adaptations we have and the ability we have and other things. And like Ross Edgley again, he'll have had a certain childhood and certain adolescence that led him to the adult that he is, and then also the amount of training he did for one of those goals. And then if he when he then gets sponsorship deals or whatever, it then becomes his livelihood to be that person and have that identity and chase those goals and train that often versus someone who works behind a desk for 40 hours a week. It's a very different lifestyle again.
Yeah, and so there's so much stuff that goes into the outcome, and it's, you know, when people say, oh, it's easy to lose weight, you know, they're the people who probably, you know, most of the time it's PTs that say that, but then even people who work active jobs usually find it way easier to lose weight than, you know, someone who works a sedentary job. You know, is that nurture? Well, I mean, it could be to do with their upbringing. It could be, you know, their dad might have been a builder or something, and now they're a builder, and, you know, that's why they do an active job. Or it could have been, you know, so many other factors. And it's important to note in any of these training goals or weight loss or muscle gain goals, it's, you know, there's so many factors that go into it. It's not always just diet and exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that point, you know, because you talked about coaching everyday athletes who want to have a performance-based goal. So corporate athletes, people working 40, 50 hours a week who then have some kind of performance metric. What do you think that's, I guess, the biggest limitation for those folk are when it's time poor, you've got to then, I think, be really specific, I guess, in terms of the goal that's being chased, because the time is just not there to fanny around.
Yeah. Funnily enough, I had a conversation earlier today about comparison, people comparing the time it takes to do something. And one of the takeaways I got from that was like a lot of people say, oh, how long did it take you to do X? You know, how long did it take you to lose that weight? How long did it take you to get that big, whatever? Where the more important question is probably, what actions did you take to lose weight, get big, whatever? Because the actions are going to be what actually determines it. You could have all the time in the world and not make any action towards it, and you're not going to have the result. The time might be a limitation, but you can focus your actions around the things that are going to have the biggest impact on your goal. So if somebody has a muscle gain goal, and they, if they want to be a bodybuilder, for example, but they also want to work 40 hours a week, then they also, need to fit in whatever else they're trying to do, like in their social life and stuff. The keys are going to be the really big rocks, rather than dealing with, that minutia of stuff that might not make a difference and might take up a lot of time. It's like the 80-20 principle, right? You can probably get around 80% of the results for 20% of the work. And then you have to put in that extra 80% of effort to get the 20% of results. It's sometimes the cost benefit ratio isn't worth it. So I find that focusing on the things that have the biggest impact are going to be, the things that I personally use with my clients who have those goals. And as I said, most of them are, that everyday athlete. They're working 40 hours a week and they want to run a marathon, for example. That's a lot of work to work up to being able to run for 3 or 4 hours while also, working 40 hours a week. So focusing on things that you can do that don't take 3 or 4 hours a day, that you can, in the end, will all stack up like, I don't know, a puzzle to make the thing at the end.
Yeah. Good, really good points. It's just that whole thing again of people get lost in the minutiae and get lost in the weeds, to use two cliches at once, and they then almost achieve nothing, or they don't do anything because they're rabbit in the headlights. And it's that whole look, you've got a lack of time, and these things, as you said, the Pareto principle of this small amount of stuff is going to bring you most of the results. So let's focus here. And I think that's a great lesson for most people, because especially in the lives that we live and the amount of stuff we've got going on, it's that if you can apply that Pareto principle to most of your life, you're doing really well.
Yeah.
With that comparison, Nick, like I know you said, okay, like people always ask like, oh, how long did it take? And it's very much a Amazon generation of, wanting things yesterday.
Yeah.
But with comparison, where do you think a lot of people's goals actually come from? Do you think that they come from then comparing themselves to other people and saying, oh, that looks cool, I want to do that, as opposed to actually deep down what they really want?
I think that looks cool, I want to do that, gets people to ask questions. I don't think it gets them to take many actions. Like it might get them to do a little bit, but not that much. I find the people who actually start taking action are the people who have a deeper motivation for something. They're not motivated just because, a picture in a magazine or something like that. They're motivated because deep down they have a motivation for whatever reason. Maybe they want to look better because, I don't know, they feel like their wife's not attracted to them anymore or whatever. I mean, I'm using heteronormative terms, but that's what I know. So, they might want to look better because, I don't know, or they might want to be fitter because they want to play with their kids. But they're not going to, come out and say that on the first meeting with someone. One thing I use to try and determine someone's motivation is the 5 degrees of why. And it's essentially just asking why 5 times. And, it's not going to happen in the first go. I can't just say, oh, Johnny, why do you want to get jacked? And then you tell me the answer. And then I say, no, why do you want to get jacked? Because we don't know each other well enough. We don't have a rapport yet. But if we go in, a couple of weeks down the line and I say, so I know you said last time you wanted to get jacked because X reason, but is there anything underlying that? Like, why do you think that is important to you? And you keep going down those 5 degrees of why. Eventually, usually around 4 or 5, you'll find someone's true motivation. And they're usually people who take action, people who are just sort of like spectators and they're like, oh, that looks cool. They rarely take action. And if they do, it's, 12 weeks and they're out, or they do the 6-week transformation thing and then they're out and they go back to their old habits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's a good point, that, because a lot of the time, as you said, that comparison might get people to ask some questions, might get a little bit of action, but as you said, they might reach a goal or not really reach a goal, and then before long jump backwards. And the five whys, 5 degrees of why, something that we use as well with our clients for that reason. And funny how you said of like at early days, there's not that rapport there, so you're not going to get a really deep answer.
Yeah.
How important do you think that relationship is in coaching in terms of actually getting a great result?
In coaching, it is like, if you want to coach someone long term and get really good results with them, it's imperative. Like, you've got to have a good relationship with them. I mean, you don't have to ask them what their motivation is, but you got to have a good idea of what it is. So somebody might not be fully forthcoming to start with, but over your conversations with them during coaching and, seeing them train and working with them, you might discover those motivations on your own. You might not have to ask them, it might be, in a session that's particularly hard and they break down and it sort of just comes out. And, being empathetic as a coach is a great way to get those, get to the bottom of these things, because it doesn't, when you say the 5 degrees of why, it sounds like you just ask them why 5 times. And then I say, over the course of time, so people think, right, I'll put in my calendar every 2 weeks, I need to ask them why. And it's not necessarily going to be like that. I mean, have you read the book? I think it's called Cognitive Coaching, Comprehensive Coaching, maybe?
By Brett Bartholomew, Comprehensive Coaching.
Oh, is it comprehensive? Conscious Coaching.
Conscious Coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have read it.
Listening to it again now.
Despite getting the title wrong, I have read it.
I'm listening to it again. You got the author right. That's all that matters. But I mean, I found that really helpful for, any coach who really wants to get into having really good results with their clients and working with them over a long period of time. The coaching industry is a funny one. There's a lot of coaches and a lot of people who are looking to be coached. They want to, do that 12 weeks and get out. And for a lot of people, that's the bread and butter. That's how you pay your bills. And you might have a couple of clients who stay on for longer. The type of client I try and attract are the longer term clients. If somebody wants to run a marathon, it's a minimum 18 weeks. I'd like longer. If somebody wants to do a bodybuilding prep, it's a minimum of, I think the last one I did was 20 weeks. And I mean, I used to do down to 16, but I probably wouldn't do below 20 weeks again. And then another 4 weeks after the show to get some sort of back to normality. Like a lot of bodybuilding coaches will leave somebody, right after the show, and it's like, cool, you're on your own. Good luck. I'm on to get my next medal, and you deal with your shit. So, I think if you want to coach somebody long term and be that kind of coach that aims for results and not just before and after pictures and not just testimonials to say, yeah, I lost this amount of weight, then that sort of relationship with your clients and, getting to the bottom of motivations and stuff, I think is very, very important.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's quite a lot of personality profiling in there in conscious coaching as well, isn't there? Yeah. Around how different people respond to feedback and how people take information and how then best to coach them into some better results. And that's definitely something that we've used here in a looser sense, especially when it comes to like a type of approach for a person in terms of the actual specific methods used, not necessarily in terms of training, but in terms of nutrition and actual coaching frameworks. Definitely personality has become much more important in terms of building that relationship and helping them, form those better behaviors.
Definitely. I mean, I think it's almost the type of person you want to coach for performance is almost the opposite of the type of person you get taught to coach in nutrition. For performance, the ideal person to coach is going to be someone who's that blue personality type, right? So the person who loves structure, loves routine, follows instructions really well. But then when it comes to nutrition, we all get told, don't give anyone a meal plan. That's not what we're here for. We've got to give them flexibility. Well, the blue type personality doesn't want flexibility. They want to be told what to eat and when. And so coming to a solution of like with that, if you're dealing with someone's training and nutrition, which is what I do, it can be very difficult. Getting around those legalities of meal plans, I found initially really hard. Now I've got a way that I deal with it really well, and it's very successful. And it almost ticks the boxes of, all the things you're supposed to get out of flexibility, like, knowing enough about your food and, not feeling like you're on a rigid, restrictive meal plan. But it has the structure and stuff that a blue personality type craves. And I just do that by essentially getting them to write their own meal plan. Once they have enough knowledge, and, I can guide them through it, but, we all know that as nutritionists and not as dietitians, that we can't give someone a meal plan. Like, it's not within the
scope of practice.
Yeah. So, I think I know the thing I love about coaching is coaching. You know, it's not necessarily the rewards for it, you know, whether it be financial or the accolades or anything like that. The thing I love about coaching is getting to get a result out of people. And you can't do that without all the things I mentioned earlier. You know, coming from the conscious coaching and that sort of framework. And that's my favorite book on coaching. I'm on my third time listening to it now. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure you completely understand it, because I mean, the reason we get along is because we have that same kind of, we're on the same wavelength, same, and like with Tim Reed as well, you know, we're all on that same kind of wavelength when it comes to coaching people and, you know, really being a coach first, not being that before and afters guy.
Yeah, definitely. Like, and having a long-term relationship with someone to build better results long-term and better habits and things long-term as well for like success. It's that whole, you can reach a goal in a certain time potentially, but then you might need to add time onto that. And then it's also, as you said, the after of what happens next. And just like someone dieting down to a bodybuilding show, there's that post-show diet. It's the same as someone who's 50 to 100 pounds overweight. And then it's a case of, but that, you know, what's next? What's the maintenance lifestyle like? Because it is a different thing. Final sort of discussion, Nick, is that you talk there about like, you know, different personalities of coaching. I guess you could say that there's also a mindset that people would like to adopt for better results and in terms of their performance overall. And you did a great post on this whole, you know, the performance mindset. It should be good to go into those sort of different elements you spoke about there.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I mean, there's a few things that come into it, and I only focused on 6 things in that post, but I think there's probably more out there. And I asked if you have any more, put them in the comments. But I mean, the biggest one for me is to show up and, you know, having the mindset to show up for yourself every day and, you know, do whatever it takes, you know, whatever's in your training program, whatever's in your nutrition program, like, and just, you know, ticking the boxes one foot after the other and just doing the work. That's probably the biggest thing. You know, I put one in there that was never be satisfied, and I almost wasn't going to put it in there because it seems like a bit of a, you know, to say you're never satisfied is almost obsessive. But I really do think that for the really top performing athletes, they're never satisfied. They want to be the best on the team, or they want to be number one in their race, or whatever it is. And I think it might not be that pertinent to like an everyday athlete, but I think an everyday athlete over someone who's just an everyday, you know, non-athlete, someone who's not going to the gym or not got a performance goal, probably will have a tendency to be dissatisfied compared to someone who isn't, you know, trying to achieve something in performance. I think the next one was patient. So being patient, because, you know, even if you're showing up every day and doing it for yourself and all that, you know, it's not going to happen overnight. And having an understanding of, you know, you're going to be putting in work for a long time, and it might seem like your results are small, you know, if you look at them on a day-to-day or even week-to-week basis. But over time, those results are going to end up being a big thing. Like if you can get, I don't know, if you do 1% every day of whatever, then you'd have 365% a bonus at the end of the year. You know, that's a huge percentage of, you know, whatever arbitrary thing I'm talking about. But, you know, 1% a day probably doesn't seem like much. Even if you talk about something as like a 100-meter sprint time, if you could get 0.1% every day, and at the end of the year you were 3% faster or 3.5% faster, that's a huge amount on the track. Like, like you would have even 0.01%. That if, you know, Usain Bolt trained every day and got 0.01% better,
it's a huge difference. It's a huge difference.
Another world record.
I'm glad you brought that up, Nick. And for people watching the video of you know, I wasn't being rude. I was just bringing up the post here on my phone so we could both revert to those sort of 6 points. But that 1% better every day, you know, you sort of you use the graph of like adopt the growth mindset with a sort of graph going up, and it's a good point, the 1% every day. Like James Clear talks about it in Atomic Habits, of the 2 planes, you know, and 1% difference on a plane over a journey of 8 hours is going to be a completely different destination. And I remember as a fit crosser that it was like every time I was doing like back squat or snatch or even fucking strict press, which is even you know, five kilos is an even bigger jump on a
Yeah.
strict press compared to a back squat. But it was always like, okay, my PB back squat's 175, so I'm going for 180. It wasn't a let's hit 176 or like 175.5. It was a let's hit 180. And snatch, it was like, right, I've got 105, let's go for 110, not 106 or 105 and a half. And if you inevitably miss it, you're like, I probably could have had the kilo gain, and then that would have led me to a very different percentage when you're doing percentage lifts, which would have then led to another slight increase. And it wasn't until I snapped my shoulder that I realized that was probably the way to go.
Well, it's funny in Fitcross because most of those gyms have the very small change plates, like down to like half a kilo or even maybe
full sets of weightlifting plates.
Like that, so you can go slow if you want. But most people, when they start making progression really quickly because they're new to it, and then you're expecting, you know, in my first year I put 20 kilos on my snatch, so this year I should put 20 kilos on it again. And it's like, no, it's
why isn't that happening anymore? And it's a really good point, that, because I've never looked at it that way, of the whole, like, because you get newbie gains, like beginners, as you start going to the gym and you get quicker and quicker and fitter, as the rate slows down, although people tell you to expect that, you almost start that you're like, oh my God, I've plateaued.
Yeah.
Like I've plateaued. It's like you haven't.
Yeah.
You're just not seeing the results in the same way. And I found it really funny in that one of the terms of Fitcross was leave your ego at the door. But actually, in a lot of places, and I'm speaking from a world of experience here, so if you do still do it, don't hate on me. And I'm not saying that every place is like this, but in a lot of places, the ego is not left at the door, because there's that push to do the RX weights of the workout. And there's also a whole like, oh yeah, you know, like lift that heavier weight, you can do it. And although it's meant in a great way of like, let's spur someone on to lift heavier or perform better or, you know, push themselves. You then get people lifting heavier and hitting a max that's potentially ugly as shit, particularly with certain gymnastic movements and Olympic lifting. And it's like, oh yeah, like you did that movement, but actually they're now moving really badly, and it's not going to serve them well in the long run.
Yeah. I mean, I think ego is a funny thing, right? When we're talking about performance mindset, I think the best in the world at any sport probably has quite a big ego when it comes to it. But the difference is they have the ego at competition time, not at training time, you know. I can't say from experience with people at the top of their sport, but I imagine at training, they're listening to their coach. They're not thinking they know everything. They're taking on board, critique and stuff. And that's probably the difference maker between somebody else who's also very good, but can't leave their ego at the door. Funny you say, leave your ego at the door in a CrossFit gym, a Fitcross gym, damn it.
Oh, no. I'll have to edit it out.
We've only said nice things this time. But so my gym at the moment, because we've been in lockdown so long, is my basement storage room in our apartment building. And it's 2 meters by 2.5 meters. So one of the ways you can't even have a barbell. And one of the things I say in there, it's pretty much only me and my missus that train in there, but she's got a very big ego when it comes to training. And I say to her, there's no room in that gym for an ego. Like you can't go in there and take your ego with you, because like it's literally, you do one thing and you have to pack it up before you can get something else out. It's obviously not ideal, but it's better than not training at all. Ego is a funny thing when it comes to that performance mindset. And it's easy to see someone with a big ego and automatically assume they're going to be really good at whatever the sport is as well. But a lot of that comes from having success and having the performance mindset the whole way to where they got to now. Like, and I think the next point that I put in the post, I think, was stay calm under pressure. I think people who can't control their ego usually can't stay calm under pressure. You know, a lot of people who have the big ego don't have that calm confidence or that quiet confidence that you see in, when you see those UFC lineups and it's, the one guy who's being really flamboyant and like really aggressive when they're doing the weigh-in and they do the face-to-face thing. And what's his name? What's the boss of the UFC? Dana White. He like stands in between them and then, keeps trying to break them up, even though if anything actually kicked off, he wouldn't be able to do anything.
He'd be like,
But it's
out of there, no time.
The guy who just stands there and just like smiles and is polite is probably the guy who's going to come out on top. Like sometimes the ego guy's going to win, but for the most part, it's a person who just knows within themselves and has that confidence and can say, come under pressure. Who's going to come on top? Because you know what's high pressure? It's being, someone taking you back and getting choked out while you're on the mat and having to get out of that situation.
Yeah.
If you're cool and calm under pressure, you get way more chance than the person who goes, what? This can't be, like in an anime. This can't be. It's impossible. I cannot be defeated, And like they got the lines going around them. I should have put my background on for this.
Yeah. Full Dragon Ball Z scene here.
Exactly. So, I think staying calm under pressure and ego almost two ends of the same spectrum. We'll use that word. I think, what was the last one I put in there?
You put set goals, goal setting and achieving them, yeah.
Yeah. So setting goals and achieving them. Again, I almost didn't put achieving them in there, but then I think that's an important distinction is that, a lot of people say they're going to do something and don't end up doing it. And I think actually putting in the work and getting there and doing it is one of the things that makes someone a really good athlete or really successful at anything. But for the purpose of this place, it was about being a performance athlete. Achieving the goal was as important as setting it, if not more.
Yeah. And setting it then gives you the direction in which you want to go to, right? It's like having a map and not knowing where you're going. You could, exactly. Any road is going to take you there. And that takes us back to the sort of beginning when we were talking about the SAID principle and actually knowing, what the fuck you're doing this for. So
exactly.
Nick, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Where can people go to find out more about your lovely bearded Australian self?
Instagram's probably the place I'm most active. So you can find me at nutrition with an underscore because somebody took nutrition. I thought I was really smart when I thought of it, and apparently someone thought of it before me. So nutrition with an underscore. You can find me on Instagram. Feel free to slide into my DMs. I love answering them. The amount of people that I give free coaching advice to on there, and my business coach is like, stop doing that. And I'm like, oh, I can't help myself. I also have a YouTube channel, which is nutrition with no underscore. I was the first one there. It's currently not getting uploaded to that frequently, but there's like 50 videos on there that are really good information.
I was going to say you were doing like one a day at some point. So there's so much information on there, which is really, really solid. So I definitely go and check that out.
Yeah. And that's probably it.
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on. I'm sure it's been such a great chat. So I'm sure we'll get you on again soon.
Definitely, man. I'm into it.